The Question Mark Motorist and Is Spiritualism a Fraud are two UK short films from 1906 directed by Walter R. Booth and produced by Robert W. Paul. Both films are comedies featuring fantastic elements and sophisticated special effects. Walter R. Booth was a magician and filmmaker whose achievements include the first British animated film, The Hand of the Artist, as well as pioneering work in using scale models, superimposition, and other photography tricks. His work is comparable to the French film pioneer Georges Méliès. Booth made films with Robert W. Paul for many years. Paul was an inventor who reverse-engineered Edison's camera, creating Britain's first 35mm camera. He also developed a projection system that coincided with the Lumiere's work in projecting films. He built the first camera that could be reverse-cranked, allowing for multiple exposures. Méliès himself purchased and used one of Paul's cameras. Booth and Paul featured the use of multiple exposures in their short Scrooge, or Marley's Ghost, the first adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The Question Mark Motorist and Is Spiritualism a Fraud were the last two films they made together. Booth would make more films in the following years, while Paul would focus on business and his inventions. Paul's film legacy has recently received some significant attention, and here I will quote directly from Robert W. Paul's Wikipedia page. In November 2019, the National Science and Media Museum in Bradford opened an exhibition, The Forgotten Showman: How Robert Paul Invented British Cinema, dedicated to Paul and his work in the film industry. In The Question Mark Motorist, aka The Mad Motorist, a couple runs over a police officer, who then chases after them. They escape by driving up the side of a building. The car soars through the sky, over clouds, around the moon, grabs onto a shooting star, makes circles on the rings of Saturn, and then plummets back to Earth, crashing through the courthouse roof. Using a scale model car and superimposition for the fantastic feats it performs, from scaling a building to its arrival back at the court, is the real visual treat of the film. The one detriment is the car's transparency when using the superimposition. Méliès' films A Trip to the Moon and The Impossible Voyage clearly inspired several elements of this space journey. The high quality and innovation shown here sets it apart from the many imitators of Méliès' work. No doubt Booth benefited from employing his skills as a magician, just as Méliès had. Booth remade the film in 1911 as The Automatic Motorist, building on what he'd done before. The image of the flying car, or cars in space, comes up in many films. Some serious sci-fi as in Blade Runner, but more often in lighter comedic films. You have the flying car and the absent-minded professor, and that film's remake, Flubber. Chee Chee Bang Bang? Repo Man? Spaceballs? Mom and Dad Save the World? Back to the Future? And Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Putting a car in space became a reality in 2018 when Elon Musk launched his Tesla Roadster into orbit, which also calls to mind the scene in the opening of the animated film Heavy Metal. In Is Spiritualism a Fraud, aka The Medium Exposed, a con artist and his assistant get caught in a seance scheme. The fake medium conspires with his ghoul-costumed assistant before the participants arrive. The unwitting Marks bind the fake medium to his chair and then turn out the lights. Ghostly activity the audience knows is being faked by the assistant continues until someone turns on the lights, revealing the act. Outraged, they drive out the assistant and pack the con artist into a hollow couch, which they then roll down a hill. Ghosts and floating objects were common film tricks of the time. Again, the influence of Méliès is prominent. What sets this apart is that it lets the audience in on the trick. The result is a more entertaining sequence of its type. Spiritualism and con artists go together in many films. There's Fritz Lang's Dr. Mabuse, the Gambler. Supernatural, starring Carol Lombard. Family Plot, the last film of Alfred Hitchcock. And perhaps the best of these, Nightmare Alley, starring Tyrone Power. Seances, ghosts, and comedy mix well too. Just see Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, or David Lean's adaptation of Noel Coward's Blythe Spirit. Horror and comedy go particularly well together, as innumerable films have showcased. Beyond that, the fantastic can be an unexpected source for comedy. We can just as easily find humor in zombies, aliens, superheroes, or wizards. The Motorist may be a far cry from Galaxy Quest, but they have something in common. They use special effects for comedy. Both the Motorist and Is Spiritualism a Fraud are early examples of filmmakers using special effects to give life to the fantastic and make the audience laugh at the same time. Booth and Paul were artists, innovators, imaginative storytellers, and they had a sense of humor too.